get back to the Raptors and the Sixers. Boy, did I make a point. Kawhi Leonard scored 21 points in an absolute rout. Toronto took this one 125-89. Raptors led by as many as 40 points in this game, tied for the second biggest loss in 76ers playoff history. It's hard to find just one scapegoat. I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you Joel Embiid, who had just 13 points, Ben Simmons with just 7, Embiid and Simmons combining for just 20 points. Raptors lead the series 3-2. Here's Embiid after the game.
He sucks. I know I got to do a better job for us to win. I got to do the little things. When I'm needed to score the ball, I got to show up, setting screens. I got to do a better job of rebounding the ball. So that's on me. Can't control my physical condition, but I can also control how much I push myself, and I try to do that. But I just gotta do more.
CeCe, not to take away from what Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors did last night, but what happened to the 76ers in this game?
They didn't come with the type of energy. And I think that, and something we talked about earlier, and it needs to be looked at, is Joel Embiid. If you're going to be the leader, the superstar, if you're going to be as jovial as he is on occasion, you just can't act like it's a funeral before the game if you're sick. Got your hoodie on, and because that energy goes into the team when you are the superstar. So on the road in Toronto, I see our best player come into the locker room. He's looking like he's getting ready to die. There's more pressure put on me as his teammate, because now as a role player, do I got to do more today? Do I try harder today? And it hurts the team. So
we only talk about energy being infectious in a positive way, but it works both ways.
Sure.
There's no doubt. Talk about a guy having an infectious energy and that helping the team, but when the guy who is your best player, the guy who is the reason you have championship aspirations, I thought you make a great point on it. I thought Barkley made a great point on it at halftime. When he announces for everyone, not just his opponent, but his teammates to see, man, it's hard for me to walk out here.
Right.
The effect it has on his teammates from the opening tip.
And there's 3 times that I've been really, really sick on the morning of a game where I had the flu, had to get an IV, and or had the staff either had to come to my room in the middle of the night. None of those times I let the other players know. I let the wide receiver coach know that I wasn't going to be in the meeting, that I was a little bit under the weather, but I would be at the stadium early and I would be ready to play. Regardless of how I felt, all those times I didn't feel like I felt good enough to be able to play. So that message that you send to your teammates, it does have an effect on them and how they approach the game.
So for people that didn't watch the game, what was Embiid's body language? What was the energy he was emitting? What did it look like?
Well, this is the thing. He's been inconsistent for a couple weeks. There's been a number of injuries. It's different if you have an ailment, a physical ailment. Cantor separated his shoulder. If you got a bum knee, which he's been fighting since the All-Star break. Those are all normal parts of being a professional. But when you're ill, I remember we had a bout with Robert Smith, had the chicken pox. He had all the childhood issues as an adult. And playing in the locker room, we didn't know how to take it. Man, is this guy, is he going to ever be a star for us? Now, eventually he got through those things, but the message that it sends to the team, if you let them see that. And I just thought that Joel more promoted his sickness and illness, him texting the coach a couple games before. So I mean, there's been a short history of him not understanding what a leader is supposed to do in good situations and bad ones.
Star players need to be ready to play in the playoffs. It's just the reality of it. You can say it's unfair, but guys who were healthy throughout a season, it's one thing if Kevin Durant had a year where he missed a year due to foot surgery and missed that postseason, right? That happens. But if you are healthy throughout the year, you need to play in all your team's playoff games. Joel Embiid missed a game in round 1, and he de facto missed the last 2 games. That's a knock. That is a fair knock. You are supposed to. Michael Jordan never missed a playoff game. Maybe that's an unfair standard. LeBron has never missed a playoff game. Guys that are on the tier that Joel Embiid, when Mark Jackson says he can be one of the greatest big men ever, you need to find a way to get yourself prepared to play this time of year.
And just like normal people, some days you wake up and don't feel great. That's the reason why I shared those stories. Not to say that I'm some superior athlete to him. People wake up on a daily basis and have to go do their job. It's not in Game 5 in Toronto. But this is what you're going to face as a professional athlete, how you deal with it, because I'm sure there's other superstars in the playoffs that are going to have the night before the game. They're going to be sick, not feeling good. Will we be hearing about it, though? Will they let the media know about it and things like that? I believe there's a different way to handle it.
And when you're a guy who's already missed a game this playoffs due to a knee injury, to essentially be MIA the last 2 games due to an illness, it's pro sports. It's about production. And it is not a typical job where I'm taking a sick day, especially not this time of year. So that's one half of the Philly future process. The other half, Ben Simmons, got no excuses. Even if Embiid's excuses are unacceptable, they are at least explanations to go along with being excuses. Ben Simmons fully healthy. Everything's healthy about Ben Simmons right now except for his game, which is sick. Ben Simmons this series is 9.7 rebounds, 5 assists. His points and his assists, the 2 places he helps you most as a player, have been halved from his regular season averages. And Ben Simmons not being able to produce at a high level in the second round last year was a big reason they went home against an undermanned Boston team. And to my disappointment, a lot of people's disappointment, he did not get better over the summer. Maybe the embarrassment of this series will force him to get better over the summer, because Kawhi, first game of the series, he wasn't great. It was the others on Toronto that picked up the slack. And Philly, this was as big of a game as these kids have played in their careers. Jimmy Butler was ready. Tobias Harris was ready. The 2 guys that they had so much faith in, they went all in by trading for Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris. Those 2 guys did not show up, and now they face a must-win game at home in Game 6 tomorrow.
All right, let's move on to the Rockets and the Warriors. This is pivotal Game 5. It's tonight. It's at Oracle. Warriors have dropped their last 2, so some might be concerned. They're tight heading into tonight's game, but Draymond Green isn't buying it. He says the team's vibe is great. He has no concern. Nick, what's the key to tonight's matchup?
Andre Iguodala's left knee is the part of this game that, to me, is different than the other games in this series. Andre Iguodala, with 10 seconds left in this game, Game 4, hyperextended his knee. Andre Iguodala, during the regular season, 0 regulation games he played more than 30 minutes. The last time he played more than 30 minutes prior to this series was an overtime game against the Rockets at the beginning of January. That was the James Harden 3 at the buzzer game, the game where Kevin Durant ran out of bounds. They didn't call it. That was how many months ago? 5 months ago, we're talking. Last time he played the level of minutes that he has played in every game this series. 34 in Game 1, 32 in Game 2, 41 in Game 3. You saw it wear on him. That's why he didn't play a full 30 minutes in Game 4, and now he's got a hyperextended knee. The Warriors have no bench right now. Their margin of error once DeMarcus Cousins went down went away. Jonas Jerebko cannot play. Alfonso McKinney is their most reliable bench wing. That's a problem. So Andre Iguodala, where this series flipped initially last year was Iguodala's injury. It then flipped back on Chris Paul's injury. If Andre Iguodala cannot go 35-plus minutes, to me, that is the key that is different in Game 5 than we had seen in Games 1 through 4.
I believe that's one of the keys to the game. If I'm Steve Kerr, I make an adjustment like the adjustments that I made going to the Hampton 5. I bring Iggy off the bench.
Oh, wow.
I reduce some of those minutes because I'm not worried about Clinton Capella going off. I know that Houston at some point in that first quarter, they're going to go to small ball. And I'll be ready for that. But I can reduce some of those minutes, especially those first 6 minutes of that first quarter where he is chasing around James Harden, running over top of all those screens. Because we were bragging about Iggy, his ability and how he was playing well, him and Draymond leading the NBA in dunks up until the last couple games. So playing above the rim with Spring. Now he's got a hyperextension. He's probable for this game, so I would reduce some of his minutes. But I look for Houston to try to attack the paint. That's what they have done. That's one thing you've helped explain to me as far as the analytics of basketball. Yeah, it's about shooting a 3, but it's about getting the easiest shots also in dunks and layups. In the last 2 games in wins, Games 3 and 4, that's what they did. 28 attempts in both of those games. In the restricted area. I'm not talking about floaters. I'm talking about within 3 feet of the cup. And we know they're going to get to the free throw line. And if the refs call everything like they have done in games 2, 3, and 4, I'm not shocked at all if Houston goes to Oracle and steals the win and takes the lead 3-2 in the series.
At some point, the Warriors have to show up and be the Warriors again. They're not going to keep flying through the postseason where one guy has a great game and all the other superstars don't. Don't you think this might be the time? All right, enough is enough, guys. We're back home. Let's just do this where every player shows up.
It could be, but the premise of that, Jen, I think is a little flawed because I thought the Warriors played a really good game offensively in Game 4. Steph had 30.
Okay, so
KD had 30 plus. The Rockets, Eric Gordon was 2 of 12 from 3. Chris Paul is 4 of 11 from the field. Another game with mediocre production. The Warriors only turned the ball over 11 times. A lot of parts of the recipe of a Warriors win should have been in place. And they were down 17 in the second half of that game. They were lucky to get it close, lucky to get it to where they are a Kevin Durant or Steph Curry 3 away from forcing overtime. Some of this is, Mark Cuban gets really mad, just real quick here, when people talk about that series, the Heat-Mavs series, and they say, oh, LeBron melted down. He says, and by the way, LeBron did melt down to a degree, but he says, we forced him into that. You guys take away all of our credit for our game plan. Take away all of our credit for our planning.
They did have a great game
plan. Take away all of our credit for knowing he won't post up, so force him to post up. The Rockets, I'm sure, are feeling right now, yes, Game 3, Steph and Clay missed some open shots. But we have been planning for this series for 3 years. So part of their struggles are what we are doing, not just what they are doing to themselves.
And Kevin Durant, he gave the team a pep talk. He said, I'm Kevin Durant. So the series for which you're talking about, oh, we're going to turn it on, that was the last series. And when they turned it on, you know what happens when you turn it on? If you're better than the other team, then it plays out. That happened in round number 1. Now we're in the conference semis, and they're not that much better than Houston. And Houston, because they've been building the monster the last couple of years, they're not intimidated by Golden State. People might be shocked by this. There's 7 teams in the NBA that shot more threes than Golden State. Yeah. So the system is out there. They're not the only one playing this style of basketball, and Houston plays their style the best that we've ever seen it as far as the history of the NBA. So I'm looking forward to seeing this game. We got to give Houston some credit because they made the adjustments. They went small ball, and that's giving them the edge to be able to tie up this series.
And Houston, the analytics are not just an offensive philosophy. They are also a defensive philosophy. And by that I mean, James Harden this year, 98% of his points came in the lane.